Welcome to the Sons of Mjolnir podcast.
The Sons of... what?
This isn't your Sons of Macaroni, yeah!
The Sons of Mjolnir?
This is Sons of Mjolnir, yeah!
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Sons of Mjolnir for all-time after show. Once again, I am joined by my very good friend Zen from the Listen 3000 podcast. We are back to talk again about Loki season 2, and we're going to be talking about episode 2 this time. Zen, welcome back to the show, my friend. Thanks so much for coming back.
Definitely, man. Thank you again for having me, man. I'm excited to talk about episode 2, man. I'm hyped, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, everyone who watched our episode last week will know that we were really big fans of the first episode. We both thought that it was a great start to this new season. Episode 2, we kind of get deeper into, I guess you could say, the mystery of what's going on. And a lot of this episode revolves around finding Sylvie, which is kind of the cliffhanger that we left off on last episode. So before we get started into the kind of nitty gritty stuff, again, if you guys have watched our episode from last week, this is both kind of breakdown / discussion. So before we get into some of the interesting stuff that I have written down here, again, let's just overview of the episode. Zen, what were your thoughts about this second episode?
Oh, man. I thought this episode was dope. We got to jump around a little bit. We got to look at a few other timelines and really explore a few other characters and expand a little bit more outside of the TVA. So I thought this was really fun. And just a natural progression to the season, in my opinion, where we're going, and I'm excited to really get into it.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. I will say, at least for me, I definitely thought episode 1 was better than episode 2. But I mean, it's like, I don't know. For me, I take these things as like an entire project. So it's like I don't really like to say like, oh, this one was better. This episode was better than this, because this is essential for where we're going, right?
Exactly.
And so, like I said, I really enjoyed this episode. While it wasn't as maybe action packed as episode 1, I thought it was really great. And it just, like you said, I really loved how we're getting even more into the TVA. And like we'll get into this in a minute, but we have like a lot of this episode deals with like an interrogation almost in the TVA interrogation room, and just kind of seeing more of the gadgets that they use, and kind of something that we were talking about on last week's episode about how it feels like we're only in one building of the TVA. So it was nice to kind of see a little bit more of that. And it also brings to mind too, when I was editing our episode from last week, I edited it before we watched the episode, like before the episode came live for everybody. And then I'm watching the episode, and in last week we were talking about like, yeah, like we want to see more of the TVA. Like we see cars and ships, like who's driving them? We completely forgot that whole scene with that lady when Loki jumps in. I was like, well, that answers our question right there. That lady's driving them.
Right.
But back to this episode though. So let's kind of get into some of the more nitty gritty stuff. So a major player in this episode, and someone that we were introduced to in last episode, is going to be Hunter X5, and also known as Brad Wolf. So this episode opens up with Loki and Mobius tracking Brad Wolf down, who is they find him in London in 1977, and he's like this big movie star, and he's at this big movie premiere. And for some of the comic knowledge on you guys here, one thing I caught, which I thought was super fun, they pass a Kingo poster. If you guys remember Kingo from the Eternals, he's like a movie star throughout, generations. So they quickly pass a poster of him, which I thought was super fun. I love a good Eternals Easter egg. But the major thing from this whole part, which I thought was really interesting, so the movie that X5 is in and that he's promoting is called the Zaniac. And so the Zaniac is actually something from the comics. And so what Zaniac is, it's basically like a swarm of bugs from the dark dimension. And what they do is they possess people. And so this, I'm going to say right now, this is going to definitely shed some light on the time period of this piece. And thankfully, comics have come a long way since then. But basically what these parasite bugs do is they possess someone, and the person they possess develops an overwhelming bloodlust and desire to kill women. Like
Wow.
not just people, specifically women, which is like
Right.
super weird. But besides that weird bit of history, what I think is very interesting is, so the Zaniac, this like demonic parasite, first debuted in Thor, specifically Walt Simonson's run on Thor.
Hmm.
And what I find interesting about that is, not only is it, so like I said, it's a reference to Walt Simonson's Thor run, which also is where the TVA originated. Walt Simonson created the TVA in Thor 720 or Thor 372. So I thought it was kind of interesting. Like, obviously, this could just be a small, just kind of nod, like for us comic nerds, like, oh, we just need a weird name, so let's pick Zaniac, which entirely possible. But I don't know. I thought it was kind of interesting that they specifically chose a character from the Walt Simonson run where the TVA was created. And we just saw a story. I don't remember who it was from recently, but someone involved with Loki said that one of the goals of the series, not this season in particular, but is to get that Thor and Loki reunion where
Right.
we've been teased with at the end of Infinity War. Not the end of
Mm-hmm.
it, but in Loki's death, he says like, "We'll see the sun again someday, brother," or something along those
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
So they said they want to pay that off. So Zen, after now that I've thrown that comic knowledge onto you, what do you think about that? Do you think I'm onto something there? I feel like, again, it could just be a little like fun nod, but I think it could be a little nod that they're kind of inching us closer to that Loki Thor reunion. What do you think?
I definitely think you might be onto something with that, man. Because I didn't know about that, and now
Mm-hmm.
that you dropped that on me, I thought that's crazy. Now that I
Yeah.
think about it, and that plus, I know people. I seen people saying in the last episode when we first seen Sylvie and this branch timeline, the location Brixton, I think it was, is
Yeah.
also connected to Thor in a way.
Broxton,
So
Oklahoma. Yeah.
Brockton, Oklahoma, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that and that, like they're dropping these little Thor things in here that maybe
Yes.
it could accumulate into something in the future. I definitely think that might be something. I
Yeah,
think there's
Zen,
something there.
that's a great shout. That's something that I honestly forgot about to mention last episode, and this time is, like you just said, Broxton, Oklahoma is very important to Thor's mythos. It's a different run from the run that I was just referencing, the Walt Simonson
Hmm.
run. So that's going to be from J. Michael Straczynski. I always mess up his last name, but in that run, which kind of aligns very much with the MCU, Asgard is destroyed after Ragnarok, and after that happens, Thor makes the new Asgard in Oklahoma. So
Mm.
similar to in the MCU, how we have new Asgard in Tornsburg, Norway.
Mm.
It's like I said, in the comics, that's in Oklahoma. So
Right.
again, I think that you're right on the money. That, like, kind of where I'm coming from with this Zaniac nod. Is Zaniac himself particularly important? No. Is Broxton, Oklahoma going to be necessarily important? I don't really think so. But I just think that they're kind of using these little nods again to kind of be like, yeah, these are Thor things. Remember, Thor, Loki is a Thor character, like that.
Yeah.
Remember when they're supposed to reunite? Like, that could have, like, I don't know. I just feel like they're kind of slightly nudging us towards that direction.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely agree.
And I will say too, getting to the Thor and Loki stuff, I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love a reunion between the brothers.
Hmm.
But I do think that if it does happen in this season in particular, it's not gonna be like main 616 Thor. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
it'll be some kind
Be
of
like a
branch.
multiversal Thor or somebody
Yeah,
from a different
but
timeline.
it'll work to give Loki that closure, right? Like,
Right.
I don't think it necessarily has to be our main 616 Thor to have that satisfying reunion. You get me?
No, for sure.
That moves us along though a little bit. So they capture Brad Wolf at this movie premiere, and then, like we mentioned earlier, they basically go and interrogate him, and a lot of this episode has to do with his interrogation. But something about this scene that I really enjoyed, and kind of something I want to talk about a little bit, is Brad's an asshole.
Yes. Yes, he
Brad
is.
is 100% an asshole, which I want to shout out real quickly. The actor, Raphael Casal, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. but he's really good in the role. Like he's one of those, like, I love to hate him. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like he's a douchebag, but he's very charismatic about it.
Yeah.
But something I really thought was cool about this scene is he like really goes in on Loki, and it's something that I thought was interesting because he's saying like, you're a villain. Like that's what you're good at. Like every time you try to do something good, you ultimately fail, which is true of Loki's character. Like, yeah, he was being a dick, but he wasn't necessarily speaking out of his ass either. And
Yeah.
I just thought it was really interesting to see how Loki responded to that, because something I think that a lot of people forget, and even I forget sometimes, is this is not the same Loki as like Loki from Thor Ragnarok and Loki from Infinity War. Like this Loki came to us straight off of the Battle of New York.
Hmm.
So while yes, he did go through a major character arc from the first season, he still is pretty fresh from his villain era. So I thought it
Yeah.
was really interesting seeing X5 kind of probe that and see how he responded. What did you think?
I thought that scene was crazy, man. That full interrogation scene was wild to me, but that part in particular, the fact that he was able to get under Loki's skin, and it was funny because before that, I know him and Mobius were going back, and he was like, "Yo, don't let him, don't let him bother you, don't let it,
Mm,
and you could see like the stuff he was saying, like really was kind of poking at him, like,
yeah.
oh wow,
Well,
okay,
we even see Mobius loses his cool,
yes,
man, which is not
yes,
characteristic of like Mobius keeps his cool. And I feel like we even got, again, watching the episode again last week kind of reminded me, we get a little tease of that when X5 is fucking with him about the jet ski. And he's like,
yeah,
"Oh, is this calling to you, Mobius?" But again, in classic Mobius fashion, he's like, "Oh, I don't know, like maybe a silent whisper." Like he's, cool, doesn't let it get to him. But when he started probing him about his life on the timeline, that really got to Mobius. And like we
yeah,
saw him frazzled, which I thought was again very interesting and made me think more about Mobius's character.
yeah. Nah, definitely, definitely. I'm just thinking of the predicament they're in, like just finding out that, this whole life that he believed to be something is not what he thought it was. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody who probably knows Mobius pretty well to kind of just dig in to these insecurities or this fear or this doubt or whatever he's going through at the time and kind of just jab at it, jab at it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was great. That scene was really dope to see. Like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, I felt like Owen Wilson really got to get into his bag there, acting wise, to kind of switch up the Mobius character and kind of show a different side of him.
100%. And I think, I don't know, Mobius is a character that really fascinates me because I don't know, I feel like, which this is something we'll talk about too with, I want to talk about this with OB as well, something that we
Hmm.
kind of alluded to last week but didn't get too much into. I feel like Mobius, he doesn't know more, like he doesn't know that he knows it, but I think he is
Hmm.
more important than your average TVA agent, because like
Agreed.
I feel like the whole jet ski thing is kind of a clue to that. Like in the first season, he's like for some reason obsessed with jet skis. Like he doesn't remember his life on the timeline, but for some reason he has a kind of connection to that life that other people don't have.
Right.
And I think that all this all relates to kind of what we're talking about right after that interrogation scene when Mobius kind of loses his shit. Him and Loki go get some pie, cool down with a nice slice of pie, right?
Yeah.
But
Right.
basically Loki kind of asked him, he's like, "Yo, man, like that frazzled you. Like, do you think about your life on the timeline? Like, why don't we go there?" And he said something which I think is really interesting for his character and just like really good written line too. Is he was like basically he was like Loki was like, "Oh, are you afraid like it's something bad? Like what if your life is shit there?" And he was like, "No, what if it's something good?" He's like, "What if it's something
Hmm.
really good? Like what do I do with that then?" And I just
Yeah.
like was like, "Damn, like that's true." Yeah, it's one thing to know like, yeah, in this alternate timeline like my life is kind of shit, But what if you
Mm-hmm.
knew in this alternate timeline that you had a great life, like a
Right.
family? I don't know. Maybe he ran a jet ski store, right? Like
Right. You never know.
that's what I'm saying. So I thought that really kind of gave us some more insight on Mobius's character. And I also think kind of goes back to another topic that we talked about last week in the kind of theme of consequences. And like this is Mobius's version of dealing with the consequences of season one, like we talked about previously. So,
Yeah.
like you said, he now knows that the life he's lived is not real. So what does he do with that? And I think
Mm-hmm.
seeing the response of how people deal with that is very interesting, like how Mobius deals with that, where he just kind of avoids it. But then we
Mm-hmm.
see people like Hunter B-15 who actively is pursuing it and like trying
Yeah.
to fix it. And then we see Brad Wolf who he just wants to go live his time on his life on the timeline. So
Yeah.
like I said, I thought that part was really, really cool.
Nah, same. Definitely.
And I also do want to say too with the pie thing. Did you think it was weird that all the pies are key lime? Like, I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
I've
that's
had
something that
even
just like I'm like trying to notice everything, but I was like,
yeah,
there's not one apple pie in there. Like, what?
something, man. I even noticed from last season. I always had a little. I don't know. Don't. I don't know if it's any credence to this theory at all, but I'm like, something's up with that pie. Like, why is that the only thing they eat? Why is that what they do when they
Yeah.
feel something? They go into the key lime pie,
I was saying
all this
why
green
key
pie.
lime, like specifically, and I mean, again,
Right.
this could just be my crazy freaking conspiracy brain, but it makes me think of Ant-Man when when he's Giant Man, and remember he's
Hmm.
like, I need orange slices, like
Yeah,
citrus.
orange slices.
Yeah, maybe it's some citrus thing that's like the
Maybe, man.
timekeeper's secret or something.
Right, right. I don't know, man. Maybe that was Kang's favorite pie or something, and he
Yeah.
just, you know what, that you're gonna eat this
Yeah,
key lime pie.
you know what? Everyone in the TVA eats key lime pie, and that's it.
Right, right. I even had thoughts like maybe it's something weird with the pie. Maybe when they eat the pie, something happens to their mind or something. I don't know, man. I was just
Maybe.
throwing crazy
Honestly,
thoughts out
though,
there, but I'm
I
like,
mean,
why the key lime pie?
honestly though, that honestly loops us right back to something I mentioned that I want to talk about is OB, which we talked
Hmm.
about last week. So OB is not
Hmm.
really in this episode, at least from my memory. I mean, I'm sure he shows up, but I don't think
Yeah,
he has like a
I don't think
major.
he plays a big part of this. Yeah.
Yeah, but something I want to bring up that we didn't talk about last week, but you alluded to, which again, watching the episode again really like solidified in my mind. Something's up with OB, man. Like, so we talked about this, and I don't think same thing with Mobius. Like, he doesn't know what he knows. Does that make
Hmm.
sense? Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
think he's definitely more important than he knows that he is.
Exactly.
And something that you brought up, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, and like I said, blew my mind, is why is why is OB able to remember things from the past?
Hmm.
So if you guys remember from episode one, there's that scene where Loki is talking to OB in the past, and in the future, OB is like remembering the conversation like in real time, right?
Yeah.
But the question that arises from that is why can he remember that? And a couple other people were just like, oh, because he's been down there for so long, like he's been down, so like that's all he knows. But I would push back against that by saying, well, Loki saw Mobius and B-15 in the past, but Mobius didn't remember that happening. Like when we
Hmm.
catch back up with Mobius, he wasn't like, oh yeah, I remember you came in here a long time ago talking about this He Who Remains guy. Like, why would he not remember that? So, like I
Yeah.
said, I think OB is more like he knows more. He knows more, but doesn't know he knows it. Again, does that
Right.
make any sort of sense?
No, I definitely agree with you. I had a thing I was thinking about too, just pondering after watching the episode again. I was thinking maybe they don't wipe OB's mind because he knows so much that they don't want him to lose some knowledge. You know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
again, he wrote the book on the TVA. He's in charge of keeping the temporal loom
Mm-hmm.
intact. Um, so like if the temporal loom goes out of tech, the whole TVA goes out of whack, as we see, right?
Yeah.
So like I feel like that might have something to do with why they might not necessarily wipe his mind like they wipe everybody else's mind. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. 100%. And I would say
Yeah.
too, I feel like whether his I don't know if his mind is wiped or not. That's the thing. It's like, is his
Hmm.
mind wiped? Because I don't know.
I
Maybe
don't
just
really. I honestly don't think. I don't think it is
I would
personally.
say honestly, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I love OB and like I don't want to believe that he would have like nefarious like means. But I
Hmm.
just again I can't think that he would do something like willingly. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
he's like I'm purposely gonna fuck with Loki and Mobius or
Right.
whatever it is. So like I said, I feel like he's gotta just not know how important he really is. And
Hmm.
kind of like similar to Miss Minutes, like he's like on Miss Minutes level, like he keeps everything running, but he is, he was placed there by He Who Remains, but he doesn't necessarily know why he's so important. And
Yeah.
I want to bring up just very quickly, we're talking about OB. I want to shout out MT Mastertainment over at
Hmm.
Heavy Spoilers. He's one great guy, awesome. He is the master of these theories and stuff. I mean, I am just but a small fish in his nerd pond, but I want to shout him out real quick because he had a really great thought that I really loved. Is OB could be a Kang variant, and he could be a variant of He Who Remains, that He Who Remains purposely put there to run all the TVA stuff. And again, like I don't think that means he knows that, but he could be a Kang variant. Specifically, he shouted Mr. Geffen, which I thought was a really great shout. So like I said, I thought that was really, really a cool thought, and it got my wheels turning for sure.
Yeah, that's a very interesting theory there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm OB gang until I die, dude.
Same.
I'm gonna ride with that man. So I'm just gonna keep telling myself he doesn't know what's going on until I am like 100% shown otherwise. Let's move on a little bit. Like I said, we could honestly just make this the OB variety hour and talk and just talk about Ouroboros the whole time. But we got to talk about Sylvie, and we got to
Yeah.
talk about Sylvie and the Loki reunion. So, like I said, they are interrogating Brad Wolf. They find out where Loki. I mean, she is a Loki, but
Yeah.
find out where Sylvie is. And again, from the end credit scene of last week, we find her in Broxton, Oklahoma, working at McDonald's, and her and Loki have this kind of reunion. So, Zen, what do you think about the Loki Sylvie reunion? At least for me, I know this was something I was waiting for as a fan, like from last season.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. That's one of the most highly anticipated link ups again that we've
Mm-hmm.
been waiting on. Because that seemed to be like, especially coming from episode one, everybody wants to know, all right, where is she at? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
After the events from the finale from season one. I thought it was dope. I thought it was good. I appreciated the talk. And I don't know. I still feel like she doesn't really understand the consequences of her actions yet.
Uh-huh.
And like Loki's trying to like hammer it home, like, yo, stuff is messed up. You gotta come, we gotta fix this. You gotta
Yeah.
come back. And she's just like, no,
Yeah, I'm
I did
good.
my job and I'm to relax. But I thought their meetup was cool. It definitely didn't disappoint me from what I was waiting on to get from them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I said, I was really waiting on this reunion, and I mean, how do I want to say this? Like, it wasn't like a crazy, like, oh my God, like big revelation kind of thing. It was a little bit more subtle. But
Mm.
what I really loved about it, and again, I can't really remember like specifically what they said. Again, I should have took better notes. But from what I remember though, is like the thing that really took my attention was again something we kind of discussed a little bit last week, but she's very content with the decision that she made. And
Yeah,
we see here, like, not only is she working at this McDonald's, but she has a car. She had, like, which I feel like is a very small detail, but to me, like, that just shows like she's living there. Like, she's not
nah,
just
yeah,
like, oh, I'm gonna be here for a couple days. Like, nah, like she's making a life here.
yeah,
And like again, I can't remember specifically exactly what was said, but it was something along the lines of like you were saying, Loki's trying to convince her, you need to come back to the TVA. We need to try and fix this out. But she's like, I'm done, dude. Like, I I did what I needed to do. I gave everyone free will, and like what they do with it is up to them. Like, I'm not overseeing that shit. Which I thought was like again very, it was interesting, and I think played off very well with where we left off in season 1. Again, same thing with episode 1 of the season. I feel like this series is doing such a great job with kind of paying off what was set up and established in the first season. And something that we talked about too is the kind of theme of consequences and how people are dealing with these consequences, like we just talked about with Mobius and them. But with Loki and Sylvie, it's again that Sylvie is content with that decision, but Loki is not. And Loki is more afraid of the consequences of what will come of that. But like I said, Sylvie is content with that. So I thought this conversation paralleled that really beautifully.
Definitely, definitely. And the chemistry between Tom Hiddleston and I don't know the actress's name that plays Sylvie, but like
Sophie Di Martina, I think.
Sophie Di Martina, their chemistry is really good, man. And I definitely like their back and forth. And I like how sometimes she gets so aggressive with him, and like he's just like, yo, I'm just trying to help, and she's like, yo, no. I love that though. I love their back and forth.
Yeah, and I think that too is a great example of, like we talked about before, she's still a Loki, and I think that's what makes their dynamic interesting, and I think that's a credit to good writing, is that, like we said, she's like the kind of more aggressive, like how Loki was in the beginning of the season 1, you know what I mean, like a little bit more standoffish. And so when they interact with each other and they kind of go at each other, it's super fun to me, because it's again kind of when we were talking about loving yourself, it's like fighting with yourself. Like it's like, how do you argue with yourself, you know what I mean? So I think they play that dynamic really well together. And yeah, I think Sophie, she's a great actor. So that takes us to the timelines being bombed. So that's another big part of this episode. So we talked about what's his name, Brad Wolf, X5, which this is something that we did not mention last week, which again, upon rewatch, I was like, how did we not bring this up? Let's talk about Brad and Dox real quick. What's going on there? Is that like what's her name? Liza from Game of Thrones. What's it called? Catelyn Stark's sister.
Yeah.
And so she plays Dox. And in the first episode, they kind of have a weird little moment together. And I was saying, dude, whoever's like the meme maker online, I'm not really, I don't make memes too often, but I need a GIF or I've seen a couple like smaller memes, but I need a good one of B15's reaction to that. Like,
yeah. She was looking like, yo, what y'all got going on over
and
there?
It was
like,
so funny because that's literally how I was looking at the screen. I was like, yeah, what do you think's going on there, Zen?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I forgot who I watched, and they had a crazy theory about that. It might have been Den of Nerds when I was watching, and it was something about I don't know them. I don't know them having some type of weird relationship, man. I don't really know what that is, and I'm really trying to figure it out, because it seems like from that set scene in episode 1, it seemed like she was sharing information with him that she wasn't sharing with the full council or the collection of people that was there. And so that, you're right, like I don't know what that is, because like she literally told him, "No, we got to find Sylvie." So it was like, why you didn't tell everybody else that? You just told him that. So like,
well, not only like secret, but I don't know, maybe I read the scene wrong, but it was like, is this like a mother-son thing? Is this like a romantic thing? Like, I don't know.
Yes. That's what it was. It was like what was that, a mother-son situation there? Like, I don't know.
I feel like that's what B15 was thinking. She's like, what is going on here? And like,
right.
That's exactly what I was thinking. But so that gets paid off in this episode, and we see that Dox, the other Minutemen, are bombing all the branch timelines. So if you remember from last episode, Dox specifically was very anti non-pruning. Like, she was like, this is how we've always done things. Like, she had a really good line actually about the timekeepers, something along the lines of like, the timekeepers might not be real, but their message is real. And like, we have to still prune these branches. So that leads us to an awesome fight scene, which I absolutely loved.
Mm-hmm.
Which we got Loki and Sylvie, and they're hitting the magic hard, which I love. Something we have not gotten enough of in
No.
these series. But Zen, what did you think about this, the fight scene, and like I said, the magic?
Yeah, I thought it was really dope, man. Just to see Loki back in his element and
Hmm.
being able to battle and fight, and they're fighting the Minutemen, taking the throwing them back through the time portals and stuff like that. I thought that was really dope to
Yeah.
see. And then the combination of him and Sylvie, and like they didn't miss the step either, because it was like, oh, you remember how to do this? They did the crazy
Hmm.
blast at the end and kind of shut everything down. I thought that was really dope, man. It was one of the highlights of this episode for sure.
100%. And that, just talking about it kind of reminds me too. I feel like that also kind of goes back to our point with, the differences with Sylvie and Loki is, at least from what I remember, Loki is mainly fighting with magic. And I think he might grab one of I forget what they're called, like the zap sticks.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
Sylvie's still rocking the sword. Like she's
Hmm.
she's ready for blood, man, at all
Yeah.
times, bro.
At all times, man. She's
And
on go at all
bro,
times.
she's strapped at all times with that sword.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think that kind of goes off of what we were talking about, like the kind of differences and similarities between them. But I want to shout out really quickly too. You were just on their show, Alternate Timeline. You just did
Yes,
the
yes,
live
yes.
watch with them. Shout out to those guys. Those guys are super cool. I hopped in and was talking to you guys in the chat, which was awesome. But
Hmm.
forgive me, I forget the gentleman's name, but you'll have to remind me. But I think it's funny because he was actually saying when you guys were watching it live, we need more magic from Loki and stuff. And
Yeah, it
here
was
you
but
go,
probably
man.
Jam. Yeah,
Here,
Jam.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Jam.
Jam
Okay,
and Dennis.
shout
Shout out
out
Jam and
Jam.
Dennis. Jam and
Yes,
Dennis. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So there you go, Jam. We got some more magic, which I 100% agree. I've been missing the magic, and I think something that at least I forgot, because I was thinking about that. I was like, damn, it's been a while since we saw some cool ass like magic fighting from Loki specifically. Obviously, we
Yeah,
got Scarlet Witch, but magic doesn't work in the TVA. That's like the big
yeah.
thing in the season one. That, remember, he tries to like phase out or whatever it is, and they're like,
Hmm.
yeah, dude, like
Yeah,
that doesn't work here.
yeah.
So, like I said, I thought that was super, super cool. I'm always here for more Loki magic. And I also thought too, with this fight scene, like you were saying, there was some real cool creative like choreography in the fight.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. I think
like you said.
especially with Sylvie too. I love the way Sylvie fights. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought like her hand-to-hand combat is really dope to see. And
Yeah.
every time they get to showcase that.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And it goes back to what we were talking about, like the aesthetic of the TVA and like their gadgets. Like you
Hmm.
were saying, like they're throwing people through time doors and like using
Yeah,
the magic and stuff to,
yeah,
like I said, play off the technology. So that was
yeah.
really great. I loved that. But I mean, that's really, I mean, like I said, episode two is not as, I think, dense for information as episode one was. Something that we
Hmm.
talked about too last time is episode one was like a very big information dump of a
Yes.
lot of different things. But this episode, I feel like, was very much more plot driven. And like, so like episode one, it's like, okay, we're back. This is what you need to know. Episode two is like, okay, now you know all that. Let's get the story going. Right? Do you think
Exactly,
that's
exactly.
fair?
I definitely agree with that.
I think that's really brings us kind of to the end of the episode. But from my memory, we were talking about this before we started recording a little bit. We don't see Ren Slayer, but they do find her at the end of this episode, correct?
Yeah. So when they pruned a bunch of those timelines, if I can remember correctly, that kind of helped them narrow down where she was, because they were trying to find her, I think, earlier in the episode, but
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't pinpoint her location because it was so many different branches. It was they. I think they said it was like finding a needle in a haystack because it was so
Yeah,
many different
yeah,
branches to try to find her. So when those timelines got pruned, they were able to narrow down her location, and
yeah. Mm-hmm.
they circle in her location at the very end.
Yeah, definitely. And
Hmm.
we mentioned Ren Slayer a little bit last week, but I don't know. I'm super excited to find out where the hell she's been. Like
Same.
I'm super, super interested to see, especially after hearing that recording from like, so
Yes.
I think this is a perfect time. Let's kind of theorize a little bit.
Hmm.
Where do you think Renslayer is right now? Where at least your best guess?
Hmm. I do. I want to say maybe she's back in. I want to say she's somewhere in the past. I'm kind of going riffing off the trailers for, from what we've seen so far. But
Yeah,
I want to
true,
say she
true.
may be somewhere in the past and maybe linking up with a version of Kang or a version of He Who Remains.
Mhm.
And maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say, because time works. What they say, time is a loop. So maybe they're going to her. She's trying to figure out the origins of TVA and trying to find out more information about the TVA and what the real what's the real mission. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Now that the timeline's all messed up, things are out of whack. So I feel like now that's her mission to try to get to the bottom of it and get back on the main path of what all of this really means.
Yeah, 100%. And we got to remember too, she's with Miss Minutes, and you
Yes,
cannot
yes.
trust Miss Minutes for a damn second. So
Mm-mm.
whatever they're up to, I don't know. Like I said, I'm very interested to see where she pops up, and I mean, I just can't wait for next episode, man. Like this is definitely going to be one of those where I'm on the edge of my seat each week waiting for the
Yeah.
next episode for sure.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's crazy. I love how at the end each episode it takes me back to season one. How like at the end of each episode we're left with questions and this mystery, and we're just so eager to see the next entry into this full story that we're getting. So yeah, I'm
Mhm.
I'm super excited to see where episode 3 takes us.
There's no end credit. No end credit in this
Not on this one,
episode.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so no end credit. But something I do want to bring up very quickly, just because we were talking about all this Thor stuff. So at the end credits, there's like the flashes of all the different pictures and stuff like that. Like we get to see Loki's file. I think we might even see Sylvie's file pop up. But
Mm-hmm.
something I want to bring up really quickly is we see a big thing of post-it notes, and they're like stacked all on top of each other, like going crazy. I actually went completely mad brain and I took an entire day deciphering all of these note cards, which I won't put you guys through that right now. If you guys are interested, I have a breakdown article and it goes through all of the note cards that I found. That's going to be on the streamer.com. I'll put a link under there. But again, if you guys are interested in that, you can go deep dive into that. But one I want to talk about in particular is there's one of the note cards that has the broken tree on it. That it says the
Mm-hmm.
tree is broken, or the broken tree, and it's circled like 5-6 times. So the reason I want to bring this up is because we were just talking about all this Thor stuff, and these note cards I don't think are intricately involved with like the plot of the show, because
Mm-hmm.
most of the note cards on there don't even have anything to do with Marvel. Like there's like Star Trek references in there. It's a bunch of different stuff.
Okay.
But the broken tree I thought was interesting because uh I think that could be referring to Yggdrasil, which is the world tree.
Mm.
And
Okay.
so, for those out there who maybe not remember, the World Tree is the tree in Asgard that connects all of the 9 realms together. So that's Earth, which Earth slash Midgard, Niflheim, Elfheim, all these different realms are all connected from the World Tree.
Mm-hmm.
But after Thor Ragnarok, obviously Asgard was destroyed. So I mean, we don't really necessarily see it, but to me, that means the world tree is also destroyed.
Right.
So I thought the broken tree was very interesting because I don't know, again, I don't know what this may mean, but it is an interesting thing to think about. Yet Yggdrasil is still out there,
Mm-hmm.
broken, but it's still floating around in the cosmos somewhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Yggdrasil is a source of like immense power, like crazy amount of power. So I thought that was kind of interesting that was on there, and I don't know, it got me theorizing maybe that could come into play. And again, going back to all this Thor stuff, that could be a little nod to something that maybe we see in the future. I'm going to preface this right now. I have seen a couple more episodes than the first two, but I want to say, right, like this has nothing to do with anything that is coming in other episodes. So like this isn't me trying
Mm-hmm.
to be cheeky and be like, oh, what about this? And it's going to be in next week's episode. No, like I said, this is completely just off the dome of my brain. But the temporal loom is the energy source of the TVA. Maybe they could use some of that energy to power the TVA and fix the time loop. What do you think
Yeah.
about that, Zen? Am I crazy, or can I be onto something?
No, I like that. I really like that theory, and what you just said there about using that as an alternative power source, to help power the TVA. I think that could be amazing. I also really feel like um where they're taking Loki, maybe with this show, is kind of pushing him into maybe a position of power over the TVA.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something that we get to at the end of this season, that he kind of has to take over the He Who Remains situation,
Mm-hmm.
just so things can operate and they can kind of move things forward as we get closer to Secret Wars and stuff like that. But because I even in the last episode, uh, and I don't think they meant anything by it, but maybe they did. But they're in an elevator, and he's like, he remains," and Mobius was like, "We need a Loki who remains because you're
Yeah.
time slipping and stuff like that." I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh, maybe.
yeah.
What do you mean? What
I
do you
like
mean by that?"
that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you mean, Mobius? I like that,
Right. So
dude.
like, using the like the if I'm mispronouncing it, the Yidris tree, right?
Yggdrasil. Yeah. It's hard to
Yggdrasil,
pronounce. Yeah.
Yggdrasil.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. You're good. You're
Yeah. So
good.
bringing these kind of these Norse Asgardian elements into the TVA could be something that very. I wouldn't be surprised at that. If that's something that we see further in the future of the show.
Yeah, and I think it would be really cool too, just because like I don't get me wrong, I love this direction that they're taking Loki. And like
Hmm.
I
Oh
love
yeah.
like and this is gonna sound weird because like I'm the Thor guy and like obviously like I love Loki and his comic counterpart. But I was one of the people like when Loki season one first started, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna watch it for sure. But I wasn't like Loki was not a character I was 100% like, I love this dude. Like I liked him, I liked Tom Hiddleston, but I was like, yeah, I'll check it out. But I wasn't like, waiting for it. But
Right.
like you said, I think what they've done with Loki has made me so much more invested in his MCU character. And I really love the path that he's going on. But I think it opens up an interesting question that you kind of touch on is I'm curious, where does Loki go after this? Because
Hmm.
like he's a good guy, like 100% now. Like
Yeah.
at least in my mind, at least that's how they are kind of portraying him. And I
Yeah. I
mean,
don't see him backsliding to any
yeah.
villainous ways at all after this. He's seen the things that he's seen, and he's kind of the whole time thing kind of puts him in a different place
Mm-hmm.
in this overarching thing, because like he's seen the end, he's seen behind the scenes of all this, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
he's kind of seen behind the scenes of this. So it's like I feel like to see his progression past this, I'm very excited to see,
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, I just from and coming from like the comic side of it too, it's very interesting because, like I said, I really don't know where they're gonna go with Loki after this. Because I mean, Loki in the comics has done a lot of different things. He's been, hero, anti-hero, villain, but always, god of mischief, right? Like it always kind of circles back to some mischief stuff. And I mean, most recently, right now in the comics, he's what's called the god of stories instead of the god of
Hmm.
mischief. So I can see them kind of playing on that with Loki's
Mm,
future. Like he's not the
okay.
god of mischief, he's the god of stories. And like everything is a story at the end of the day. But like again, though, it always comes at some point it always comes back to he's an antagonist in some form or fashion. So again, I'm very like I feel like in the MCU you can't do that. Like you could like
Yeah.
we're past the point now of where it's like, oh yeah, he could still do like some like little like maybe not take over New York, but he can do some little fuck shit, right? But I feel like
Yeah.
now it's like, no, he's a good guy. Like, and if he
Yeah.
did do something, it would be like super weird. People would be like, wait, whoa, what? Like, why? Right?
Right. I've also seen people throw out little theories here. Like again, I'm not super. I dabble in the comics here and there,
Mm-hmm.
but correct me if I'm wrong. Avenger Prime, is that a
Mm-hmm.
version of Loki as well?
Yeah. Yes.
I was hearing people saying like kind of drawing parallels to like that version of Loki and kind of some of the things that he's been through in season one and some of the stuff in season two. So,
Mm.
hey man, I'm excited to see where he ends
Yeah.
up
I'm gonna have
because
to
like I
when we get off here. I'm gonna have to do some refreshing on Avenger Prime because I need to see
but
what this connection is that they're making.
yeah, man. Yeah, man. I think it's dope. I think we like a lot of people who watch the MCU stuff. They all love Tom Hiddleston's portrayal as Loki, and then we got to see his character go from Ragnarok to Avengers Infinity War, and then we see him. You know, he passes in Infinity War, but then now we get this Loki gets this second kind of chance to do something different with this character, and I'm loving every step of the way of this, man.
Yeah,
I really
and I
do.
think it honestly, like, not only did it surprise us as fans, or at least me as a fan, I think it surprised Marvel too, which is another kind of going back to, like, I'm not sure what they're gonna do with him past this, because I don't know if they necessarily thought about that. I mean, they have now, but I think, like, when this started, I don't think they expected Loki to be as big of a hit as it was. Like, similar to WandaVision. For those out there who don't know, Wanda actually had like I want to say a smaller part in Multiverse of Madness originally, but after the success of WandaVision, they were like, oh hell no, we need more Wanda now. So they made her like the main antagonist, because they're like, we need more Wanda. So I think the possibilities for Loki are as bright as they've ever been for more. I honestly think maybe, just like you were saying, keep him in the TVA and like have him either running it or be somewhat a part of it, but like keep him just in this TVA corner. I feel like that is so rich for stories. You could get like a couple more seasons of this just in the TVA before, like, not even interacting with any Avengers crap or anything like that.
Yeah, I would love it. I feel like they, like you said, they're carving this area out for him in the MCU, and then he's kind of like taking this position of, you know, kind of not necessarily spearheading TVA, but like he is our entry point into this other section of the MCU so far that we've seen. So I love that. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, hey, anything that gives me more Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson together, I am 100% there. I don't care how you do it, just give me more. I just want more. But before we get out of here, we already kind of theorized a little bit, but I love a good theory, Zen. You know I do. So I'm gonna pick a little bit more off of you before we get out of here. So like you said, you've seen the first two. So going forward, it's all fresh for you. What is something? Maybe it's next episode specifically, or it can be just as the season as a whole. What is something that you really want to see from what you know from the first two episodes now? What is something you really want to see in either, like I said, this next episode or the series as a whole?
Yeah. I got two things. So the first thing, obviously, Ravonna Renslayer, they left us with that at the end of this episode of us knowing exactly where she is. So I'm assuming that the next step after this will probably catch us up to her. I'm assuming. Another thing I really do want to learn more about the TVA, because I feel like through these first two episodes, they'll give us something and then it'll drop something else that's like, all right, why is it that way? Why does that work that way? Why are their minds white? Why does Obi know this? But like, I feel like learning more about the TVA is extremely interesting to me in this saga, because like we know we're dealing with this big multiversal thing. We know Secret Wars is coming, so we know, it's going to get crazier as we go along. So just learning more about this infrastructure that He Who Remains has created to kind of deal with the timeline is, the more we learn, the more I'm in. You know what I mean? So that's one thing I really do want to learn more about the TVA and the background of the TVA, the creation of the TVA. I'm hoping that we learn more about that as we go through this season.
100%. And again, that's something we talked about last season is, the TVA itself is still a big mystery. Like, yeah, we've learned a lot about it, but like you're saying, the actual creation, like we learned from He Who Remains' spiel that there was the multiversal war and he, defeated the other Kangs and that he created the TVA to like keep order. It's like, yeah, we know that's what he said, but is that really what happened? Like, is that really how it went down? And not only that, but I don't know, maybe I'm just a huge nerd, but I want to know the more like intricate details, like where did this building come from? Where did all this other stuff come from?
I got something for you real quick, because I had a theory I threw out on the Listen 2000 Twitter page, and I want to bring it to you here, man.
Yes,
so somewhere we talked about in the last time we linked up and talked about this was the door that looks like the X-Men
Did I not tell you, bro?
door,
Did I not tell
right?
you? Yes, I I
So
mean, obviously I saw this beforehand and I couldn't say anything about it, but I saw
yeah.
people tweeting about it afterwards, and I was just
Yep.
like, I fucking told y'all. I told y'all.
Yeah, right. So I have a theory, man, and I was just thinking that obviously we know Kang, he remains created the TVA.
Mhm.
My thing is like I have a feeling that the TVA probably is comprised of pieces and parts and materials from all over the timelines. Like one thing that we talked about was like
Okay.
how the technology is like older. It looks older, but then it's it has all this futuristic tech.
Yeah.
Kangs from the 31st century and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I was even thinking that door can easily be from a Cerebro from a prune timeline. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
100%.
And that was just one piece that he took to build pieces from the TVA. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah. I mean,
something small like that.
it could be freaking adamantium for all we know. I mean, who
Yes,
know what
yes,
who I don't
yeah.
know what that door's made of.
That's what I'm
I
saying, man.
swear, if
That's something
Ouroboros throws out an adamantium line, dude, I'm gonna lose my shit. I'm gonna
definitely,
just
man.
lose it. Well,
Same
I
here,
mean,
bro.
I think you could 100% be onto something, and I think it also gives credence to which I'm not really 100% married to this, but I've seen people talk about how Loki could potentially set up Deadpool and how something in Loki will, set up the Deadpool movie, which I don't really know. I don't know about all that. Like, hey, everyone out there knows I'm all for a good theory, man. I'll put the tinfoil hat on with the best of them. But I don't know if I really love that. But if I like what you're saying, though, and if what you're saying
Hmm.
is true, I can believe that a lot more. You get what I mean?
Nah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Because I'm
I
like,
think,
man, he was at the end of time. Where did you get all these parts from? How'd you make this place?
yeah,
Where did you get
exactly.
this from? You had to get it from
Exactly.
somewhere. You know what I mean? So it's
Well,
like,
yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, yeah, Kang is like a multiversal time lord and all that, but he can't
yeah,
just like
make
create
things
things out
out
of
of thin
thin air.
air.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's like, bro, you got a construction team, like who are you what's it called? Who are you contracting for all this work here, my guy?
exactly.
Yeah, I like I said, I really like that, and I think that you 100% could be onto something, and especially even just like the technology used to build these things. Like
Hmm.
again, like so for people who maybe not know Kang from the comics, originally Kang is from the 31st century, and so like that's where all of his tech comes from. But I
Hmm.
mean, even in the 31st century, they don't have temporal looms and all this kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
again, I think that's a very valid question to question where did all that stuff come from? Did
Hmm.
I mean, it can't all have been. I mean, yes, Kang is smarter than your average, guy. He is actually related to Reed Richards. Well,
Hmm.
depending on who you ask, that is also a
Yeah.
convoluted kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's either Reed Richards or Doom. So I mean, those are both great options. So yeah, he's a very
Right.
smart guy. But I think it is definitely fair to think that some of these materials could have come from other places in the timeline, like a Cerebro. I love that.
Hmm. Yeah, man. It's something I
100.
was thinking about, man. I seen that. I'm like, yo,
See,
why not? Why not?
see, and that's what I love about this show. And that's what I mean, I obviously I'm the Marvel shill over here, but that's what I love about all these shows. And like when they come back, it just like it's like, oh, we're back, baby. Like,
Yeah.
theorizing week by week. Talk. I mean, WandaVision was one of the best eras ever. Like that was one of the
Yes.
best,
Yes.
like week by week, talking with everyone, theorizing what was gonna happen. And I feel like this season of Loki is giving me that feeling more so
Hmm.
than the other shows, which I mean, Moon
Yeah.
Knight was like that too, I think. But
Hmm.
I don't know, something about this one I think really has people invested.
Yeah. I love that because it feels like they lean in on the mystery aspect
Hmm.
of this whole thing. You know what I mean? Like they I feel like they dabble in so many different genres, but like I feel like they lean in on like leaving you hanging at the end of the episode, kind of like building this suspenseful thing. What is this place? What's the real mission? Who's really in power? Who's in control? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So like those little things keep everybody hooked every week, and I love that about this show.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, I cannot wait to see to see where this stuff goes, man. I can't wait to see how it all ends. And I mean, I just can't be more excited, man. I'm excited to talk about it more with you. thank you again for coming on here and doing these shows with me. This has been so much fun, and I know that these have both been kind of impromptu. So again, I appreciate you accommodating me with your schedule. But I mean, I don't know what else to say, man. Like I said, I'm just so excited for what we have left to come. I loved these first 2 episodes, but besides that, do you got anything else for the people out there, Zen?
Nah, man, but I do want to thank you again, man, for having me here, man. It's been a pleasure to talk to you about Loki in these 2 episodes, man. And I hope to come back again, and I'm excited, man, for the rest of the season.
Of course, man. Of course. So, like we talked about before, Zen here has seen the first 2 episodes. So, I mean, I would love to hop on with you still, even after the episode premieres. So, next week might be a little different. This episode will come out after you guys have all seen it. But hey, man, let's link back up and still do it because, like I said, I love talking Loki with you, man. It's been super fun. But everyone out there, again, go check out Zen's channel, Listen 3000. They're
Yes, sir.
awesome. They do a really great show where while we're kind of more comic book based, they do kind of everything, movies, TV, music. I mean, you guys just had a really cool episode talking about Ahsoka, the new Drake album.
Yes.
Forgive me, I forgot you guys had a cool guest on there as well.
Oh, shout out to Elliot from Movie Files. He's a movie reviewer, YouTuber, and he came and chopped it up with us. Great episode. If y'all have time, definitely come check out Listen 2000, check out the pages, and yeah, man.
Yeah, like I said, they got a really great show. His co-host Caesar's also an awesome guy, which we got to get Caesar on here, man. Like, tell him that the invitation's open for him as well. Like, I know we've been having a great time over here, but don't tell him he's not left out. He's invited, man.
Definitely. I'll let him know, man.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll be putting all those links in the description in the description of this video. So again, you don't got to go search it. Just go under there. You'll find them. But I mean, I think that's all we got for you until next week. We could sit here for hours talking about Ouroboros and time looms and stuff, but unfortunately we got stuff to do. Zen, I know you're a busy guy. So I'm going to just end this off with, I hope you guys all have a fantastic week. Stay hydrated out there. If you guys like this video, consider leaving us a like and a comment. Please comment. If there's something that we didn't talk about that you caught in the episode, let us know what we missed. Or if you like one of our theories or have one of your own, please let us know. Me and Zen both love talking about this stuff. We will respond to you. But I guess I just have to end it for all time, always, baby.
For all time, always.
For all time, always.